As a saxophone player, you are expected to being able to play fast. What's important to know is that a pro saxophone player who can play super fast cannot move their fingers away from the saxophone faster than someone who, let's say, never touched the saxophone before. The reason why he can play so fast has to do with two factors: his familiarity with the notes he's playing and his finger technique. In this video, I'm going to talk about the second factor, the finger technique. I'm going to show you what we can learn from two of the greatest saxophone players that ever lived, Charlie Parker and Joe Henderson. By the way, if you're asking yourself what finger technique means actually, it can be described as the ability to move your fingers as efficiently as possible when playing the saxophone. Charlie Parker is known for being able to execute virtually any idea he wanted to play with absolute ease. Let's take a look at the following clip and focus especially on the fingers of his left hand. There we saw one of the secrets of a really good finger technique, small movements. Charlie Parker is getting around quite a bit on a saxophone in this clip, but you barely get the impression that he is moving his fingers at all. This is something you don't just do, but deliberately have to practice. Before we get to an exercise for that, one important side note. When you play the saxophone, make sure that you form your hands as if you would grab a bottle. Your hand position and form should look like that, and not like that. This also implies that you use your fingertips to press down the keys. This is really very important to develop a great technique. Let's now get to an exercise that helps you develop small hand movements just like Charlie Parker. I like to call this exercise the glue exercise. Let's take, for example, the following phrase. It starts at the second G, goes up to the high D and back to the second G. Now we do the following. We finger these notes while we look at our finger movements. We imagine that our fingers are glued to the keys. That means that no finger is allowed to lose touch with the key at any time. It's very important to do this exercise very slow. If this should be difficult for you, you can use a metronome at a very slow tempo to keep yourself in check. Repeat this exercise a few times until you feel really comfortable. Now, as a next step, you can play the notes again very slowly. Make sure you still keep the fingers glued to the keys. If this goes well, you can start to increase the tempo. This exercise you can apply to any kind of musical phrase where you feel you would like to work on smaller finger movements. It's also very helpful to check your finger movements with a mirror. I often find with my students that they are not aware of how much they actually move their fingers, so this is really worth checking. One important side note is that apart from the glue exercise, you're of course allowed to lift your fingers from the keys. In some situations, you even have to lift your fingers to play certain notes. In the glue exercise, we're just really trying to take it to an extreme so you get an idea of what small finger movements feel like. Let's now take a look at a clip of Joe Henderson. Pay close attention to the angle of his left hand's wrist. You don't see this position of the left hand's wrist that often. Usually it looks rather like that. But the position that Joe Henderson found has one great advantage. It is more natural. And this has very positive effects on your tendons and your muscles. Your left hand and your left arm are more relaxed and therefore you can play faster. The right hand usually doesn't have the same problem. Because of how the saxophone is built, it has a more natural position from the start. I would recommend you trying this more natural position for your left hand in front of a mirror and see what kind of effect it has for you. There's another very important factor that comes into play when developing a great technique: to only use as much strength in your fingers and your arms as necessary to play the instrument. Without getting into too much detail in this video, a saxophone player who can play really fast is very relaxed in his fingers and his arms when doing so. If you engage your muscles too much, you inhibit your movements and you will slow down. So always make sure when you're practicing to stay as relaxed in your arms and fingers as possible. If you notice that you're tensing up, it might be better to take a little break and relax a little bit before going back to practicing. I will try to upload another video in the future where I will show an exercise to relax your muscles and improve your speed. If you don't want to miss out on that, make sure to follow my channel, and if you like the video, click on the like button below. This really helps me. See you next time.